Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Health Evolution Collective. Today, I'm talking to a dear friend and a fellow health coach, Helena Kastanis. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Well, I heard the other day a really nice intro on someone's podcast, and it was to introduce their guest by saying, if you're at a party and we met for the first time, how would you describe yourself?
Funny. I think I'm funny, which is important. Considerate and, passionate about several things in my life, about my family, about helping people get the best out of their life, about making the most of now. Yeah. I love traveling, which I'm probably never going to do again at this rate.
No.
But basically, I think so. One day, yes. Yeah.
So you are pretty new into the health coaching space, which is really, really exciting. And I'd love to hear your journey, to that place. What took you to want to do that and, completely change your career?
Yes, well, started a couple of years ago. So it really started with trying to we had a sort of family crisis around my mother-in-law and her. She's in a really dire situation with her type 2 diabetes. And we'd sort of gotten to the point she was really unwell. She was, on 17 medications a day. Her blood pressure was just off the charts. We were rushing her to hospital. We had people in the Alfred knew her by name. It was ridiculous. The public hospital, a massive public hospital here in Melbourne. She'd had a stroke and a couple of strokes after that. She was depressed, overweight, type 2 diabetic for 25 years. And what had happened was we'd waited 6 months to see a particular endocrinologist to try and we thought maybe if we take a step up, because she's in the public health system and go and see this guy. He came really, really highly recommended. And we went and saw him. And meanwhile, we'd started having this conversation with a friend of ours who was a type 1 diabetic. And he started just sort of planting little seeds about the low carb diet. And he at one point, woke up and had lost sight in one eye. He was really taught the wrong things in how to manage his particular situation. And he'd done his own research, which is what you're finding now, a lot of people, just jumping online to try and help themselves because the medical advice is just not working. And he started just to plant some seeds. And talking to him now, he said, well, all you can do is plant some seeds, and if someone wants to pick one up, then they'll pick it up, which I'm finding that now myself. About LCHF. So when we were going to this new endo, he said, ask him how many carbs a day your mum should be having. And so we did. And she's on 64 units of insulin daily at this point. And he said, look, about 200 grams a day. And my husband had said, well, what about, things like pasta and rice? And he said, look, she's not going to change the way she eats now. Just let her be. Just let her enjoy her food. And we realised that, she was just going to continue to plummet down that slippery slope. And we were at the point that she was looking at dialysis. Her kidneys were shot. So that was the next step in her treatment was dialysis. And we just sort of thought, well, you know what? Let's just do what this friend is doing. We've literally had nothing to lose. So he had a CGM. We did that. And at that point, I myself, I've been overweight for, my oldest is 15. So really 15 years I was carrying around an extra, 20, 25 kilos. And I just couldn't shift it. And I was eating healthy, wasn't eating a lot. And I went to the doctor because I thought, maybe there's something wrong with my thyroid. Nothing wrong with my thyroid. And I put the CGM on as well.
Just so people know, the CGM is a continuous glucose monitor.
Glucose monitor, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so explain that. So you put this little chip in your arm, it connects to your phone, and you can see in real time how your blood glucose is, how your body's reacting to carbohydrate and sugars that you consume. So you see you'll spike, and then, your body will release insulin, or you'll inject it, and, that spike will sort of level out. And but my blood sugar wasn't an issue, but I'd started, I have fatty liver, which was a shock to me because I didn't expect my doctor to say that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it with you. I said to my mum, let's do it together. So we did. And yeah, that's how it started. We just read and watched YouTube videos from doctors, not from TV personalities and Instagram influencers, the likes of, Prof. Tim Noakes and Dr. Ken Berry and Aaron, Gary Fettke and Belinda Fettke, and like real key players like Peter Attia and our type 1 friend, had given us a whole lot of resources because he'd been researching this already. And we really start to get quite angry once you realise what's going on. But fast forward, we did it with myself. I tracked my macros and, it, sort of kept an eye on myself. With my mother-in-law, she's 75, she's now 77, doesn't do technology, doesn't speak very, doesn't do the whole English very well. So it was really basic LCHF for her. We didn't meal plan. We got her to take photos of everything, then started just swapping out literally meal by meal. Okay, so you ate this day, instead of this, you can have that. And then we started making granola and started guiding her about breakfast. And slowly she started to change the way she was eating. And because she was scared, she was petrified of where her health was going. And yeah, she stuck to it. And collectively, both of us have lost in excess of 50 kilos in 2 years. So wow. She's reversed her diabetes, which is phenomenal at her age. I think it's phenomenal at her age. Elderly people,
phenomenal.
It's incredible what she's done. And now, yeah, it's just been a wild ride. So having experienced that and learnt what I've learnt, I've seen it in action. Now I've decided that, I want to, share the knowledge and help other people because it can be done. It's not this massive, difficult, complicated thing. And really sort of, encourage and be a positive, use my knowledge for good and have an impact on people's life and do something meaningful because it literally turns your life around. I'm not 77 and I used to wake up in pain every day and it was normal for me. And that just doesn't happen anymore. And I thought, relatively healthy person, apart from the weight, I don't really have that many health issues yet, So it's made a massive difference to my life. So I just thought, well, imagine how this could help, other people. And I think now really now with all the amazing year that Dr. James Mukey's had, and he's highlighted LCHF for type 2 diabetes and really used his platform to bring attention to it. And it can be done. It's not a theory. We've done it. We've seen it. So I hope that the message keeps gaining some voices, and I've sort of come in and joined the chorus. People like yourself and, people need some help. They're not very confident with it. They're quite afraid of it because, as we said, it's challenging people's core belief systems around food, what we've been brought up to believe, how we shop, how we feed our kids. It's a massive change. Yeah. So that's how I've sort of come into this space.
Well, it's amazing that I think 99.9% of people come into this space from a personal experience and a personal journey. Mine was the same for 7 years ago, and it took me about 4 years to get my mum along as well. And she did a very similar thing to your mother-in-law at 75. she wasn't type 2 diabetic yet, but she was certainly had a whole lot of other issues going on. And, you know, it's once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, but it can take a while for people to see it first or to want to look there, because you're right. It's very overwhelming. You know, there's a lot of change that has to happen. But, you know, the beauty of you and I in the health coaching space is we're there to make it easier and to help with that.
Yes.
And, you know, the experience you had helping your mother-in-law is incredible. And that's going to give such a layer of knowledge and compassion to you as a coach, because you've seen firsthand the challenges. You know, so many sit in the space with this level of judgment and think it has to be perfect or not at all. And that's not how it is at all. And
correct.
You know, the biggest thing we need as coaches is compassion for ourselves. We need to give our, you know, clients, you know, the courage to have compassion for each other as well, because no one's perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. But that's okay.
I think there's a lot of blame too. Definitely.
Sure.
Definitely. And people blame themselves. Like she had done, even myself, I'd done Weight Watchers. I haven't, have I done Light and Easy, Weight Watchers, Light and Easy, like all these diets. And she too, she had lost some weight, I remember, for our wedding. But even those sorts of things, it's, you know, I think diabetes is or people, the whole no added sugar concept, a lot of people see that as a dessert thing. You know, the response is, well, no, I don't eat a lot of cakes. Well, it's in everything. It's in everything that we're eating, and it us to be conscious and educate ourselves and make sure people understand that it's not that they're lazy or they're gluttonous or any of that stuff. It's just that we're making the wrong choices, that we're unaware of why the choices are wrong. So it's education and support, you know, and just meal by meal, just make small. I say to, you know, people I know, it's just, you know, they say to me, you know, what have you done? You know, you've lost so much weight. It's just small changes. They accumulate, and you end up with massive results at the end. And it takes time, but it does happen. Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I'd love to just chat a little bit about, I guess, is to bring attention to the, you know, the fact that the doctor that you took your mother-in-law to see, said disempowered her completely by saying she wasn't going to change. Now, that makes me so cross, and I think that's such a fundamental flaw with, you know, I'm not going to say all, because there's so many brilliant, you know, medical people in the medical, you know, practitioners out there that don't say that. But if you are going to someone that isn't, you know, their thinking is, oh, they're not going to change. They're not even going to give you the option or the chance.
Correct.
You've got no
chance.
No
chance.
No.
Like if your specialist isn't encouraging you to improve your health and just dismissing you, because, you know, I mean, the only thing that really, I mean, she had really, you know, she's in pain. She had nerve damage, and she's getting these shooting pains down her legs, can't sleep. You know, just as a constant risk of stroke, depressed. Like, she was just in such a bad way. And for him to say, look, you know what? And I would assume that he would understand that type 2 diabetes is a disease that's brought on by lifestyle. It's bad diet, basically. So for him to say, oh, look, you know what? Don't worry about it. In other words, she doesn't matter. You know, just carry on. We'll just keep doing what we're doing, kind of thing. It was really so deflating. And I think that people get to a point that they think, you know what? I just can't. I've heard it. I can't do without bread. Oh my God, I could never give up pasta. You know, I'm such a sweet tooth. I was a cake decorator. You know, I've been a cake decorator, professional cake decorator for the better part of 12 years. You know, I've taught interstate, been in magazines. Like, I'm not just talking selling cakes to my next door neighbor. Like, I was really heavily into it. And I used to say, well, we don't really eat cakes, but I make them. No, but, there was sugar around us constantly, and I'm sure that contributed. I had a sweet tooth too. I'm Greek. I mean, I'd love to sleep in a tray of baklava, I just love all that stuff. But now that I know, and I think because, it's been 2 years now, actually, my mum makes the best baklava on the planet. And if I have some, my body just reacts to it. I just can't handle it anymore. But I used to down them like capsules, because they're so amazing. It's a matter of unlearning all that stuff. And you can do it. I think that we have this because we love food. I still love food, but I just love it different. I love it differently. I don't starve myself. I don't deny myself anything. I just don't want these things anymore. We've been accosted by relatives at functions. My husband's been said, what you're doing to your mum is terrible. It's basically, why are you doing that to your mother? Why are you real concern for her? And you just look at, and they don't know any different. You can't even get angry about it because they're just, that's what people know, what they know, that's it. So you also don't want to become, though, that annoying person that's constantly telling people what to eat. So, it's been a big learning curve sort of all round. But, I just love it. I love the challenges, and I love seeing how far people like my mother-in-law have come, and reading, people's stories, and it's every day there's something else, every day there's something else, and everyone's different. So it's a real challenge, but it's pretty full on, it's pretty full on.
Yeah, it is. So what do you think, or what do you see were the biggest challenges, particularly for your mother-in-law and for you? And then how did you sort of overcome those?
The biggest challenge for myself, I didn't feel it was too hard because when I started, I'd already given up grain for about 7 or 8 months. So that wasn't difficult for me to stay away from bread and cakes and things. It was more, well, come on, I've got to sort of stick to it now. I'm going to do it with her. It really was a sort of act of support and curiosity on my behalf. For her, it was hard because, she's this amazing home cook, and she just had to, she didn't realize, I don't think she struggled, but the substitute, she also had my father-in-law too, that is used to eating the same sort of food since time dot from her hands, just sort of changing things up a little bit. It took her a while to realize she didn't have to cook for him and for her. She could, modify things. I think the biggest challenge for her was social settings, like going to visit, like go to a social club, and in the beginning, the first few months, she felt like she had to eat what was on offer.
Yeah,
like mate was
very, very common.
Yeah, or they'd rock up and there'd be fish and chips, or something like that, and my husband would say to her, "Mum, just take your own little packed lunch. You don't have to eat." She said, "I just," because you'd see on the CGM she'd spike, and she said, "I just picked the topping off the pizza. I didn't have the base, but of course that's full of sugar as well." And he said, "Why don't you make yourself a little lunch?" She goes, "Oh no." She just couldn't do it.
I get that. Yeah,
absolutely. There was a bit of a stigma in her mind, but I think once she started to see the outcomes, she just thought, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And she was kind of, well, I'm doing it, and look at, how good I feel. And she knew the progress she was making. So she just, she just does her own thing now. But it was a big mental thing to overcome with her peers, I think, and with some, that was her biggest challenge for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very common. I see that a lot, and I definitely have experienced it myself. And I think understanding that that's very normal too. We think that means that that's something wrong with us. It's actually not. I mean, we're tribal
Correct.
creatures. If we do
Yes.
something puts us out from the group, I mean, we
Yes.
wouldn't have survived when we were evolving. As hunter-gatherers, we would have been the one eaten by the lion or whatever.
That's right. Yeah, and it's
that
wanting acceptance too.
That's right.
Tell me I'm doing great. Yeah, don't tell me I'm doing the wrong thing.
No, and
Yeah.
I see too. See, we tie a lot of ourself of who we are with being accepted, and which is normal. But then when we do something different, we worry that they won't accept us or like us, or again, all very normal and all very normal with change to experience this stuff. And what we do as coaches is help people see that that's okay. You can experience that, but still change and evolve. And in the beginning, you might, I'm still going to still eat that little bit there, and you'll justify it. But over time, look how she changed. So she eventually either took her own, or she might say, oh, well, I'm just going to fast, or I'm, like, it'll change. You'll keep seeing something new. But I think the key is seeing that it's okay, and you will be okay. It just is, you have to be brave. You have to be brave. You really do, to take those first few steps out. But you realize that people want you for you, not what you eat,
Yeah.
And if they do feel uncomfortable with you doing something different, it is about them, and it's just bringing up uncomfortable feelings in them, which is okay too. That's, wow, how amazing. But coming back to what that doctor said to her, it just breaks my heart, because he hasn't even given her a choice or a chance. And yes, he has seen probably so many people, I don't even think this doctor's probably even tried with anyone, but he's already decided, no, people can't change. I think that is a big thing that doctors need to give people the option. Is everybody going to do it, and is everybody going to want to do it? Well, probably not. But how can you not even give people a chance or give people the option if you're not even giving them that? You have to find. I was just saying, if you're listening, anyone listening, and you do want to do this, you have to find somebody, another doctor, or someone like us, or a dietitian, or someone with a low carb, lifestyle, knowledge to support you, because there's plenty of people out there that will. Yeah.
There are plenty of people out there, and I think too. Look, if it wasn't for this friend of ours, sort of planting those seeds and opening our eyes to it, as I said, my husband had been going along to appointments with my mother-in-law for many, 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 many years. If it wasn't him, my sister, just for the language barrier, but we just didn't know. But now that we know, you can't, as you said before, you can't unsee it. So there's so much information out there, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there. That whole diet industry mentality has really infiltrated the low-carb keto space. And I was actually reading a post this morning, that someone was their frustration with the fact that, at the end of the day, it is a hard work, discipline kind of action you have to take. There's no meal plan in a box that you do for 6 weeks, but once you know the basics, and you know the principles behind it, and you educate yourself, you really start to question what the hell we're all doing. And if he hadn't planted those seeds, we would have been none the wiser, because a lot of people see this as this kind of fringe movement fad. And it's really not. And the fact that it's, I'm so pleased to see more and more high profile people put it out there, but it's still kind of getting buried a little bit in the mainstream with all these, vested interests and what have you. But the more we talk about it, we've just got to keep, it's a person at a time change, I think. I don't think there's, people, because you don't eat a donut and then you wake up with diabetes, it takes years and years to develop diabetes. People don't take it seriously. And I've had a conversation and even speaking about what my mother-in-law's achieved. Yeah, but she was diabetic, so it doesn't apply to me, kind of thing. we have a very sort of tunnel vision when it comes to people don't know what insulin is. So they think it only refers to that, that disease, that problem. But it's we've all got to deal with it. We've all got to manage it. It's education. It really is. Because we would have been none the wiser. We would have carried on. She would have gone on to dialysis. You know what? I doubt, Tracey, she would have still been alive. She was so unhealthy. And so she'd cry because she just didn't see. She'd be taking all the tablets and just in tears. It was horrible, and I'm sure she's not the only one. I'm sure there are lots and lots and lots of people like that too. But it's not just diabetes that it makes a good, it helps everybody. It can help everybody, but it's that willingness to see it. People are oblivious. They really are, to their own detriment. Really, I was one too. Yeah, I'm not judging anybody for it, but
I was one too.
I suppose when, I was saying this to someone the other day, often we don't do anything about our health until we've been backed into a corner and we're given a red flag, and it's like, you know what, you're about to die, or you're going to do this, or this is going to go really wrong, and we're just sort of shocked into action. And you really don't want to get to that point, because even her, with her amazing achievements, the damage has been done to a certain extent. Her poor body has endured so much damage. So, hopefully it'll gain a bit more momentum, and people will see it for what it is and won't sort of keep demonizing people as crazy for telling people to cut, take it easy on the sugar. It's frustrating, but it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. It's interesting. I think, there's certainly been a lot of movement towards understanding sugar. But, as you said, people just think sugar is the sweet stuff and the things we add. And so if we don't add any sugar or don't eat too many sweets are okay. But, the biggest misunderstanding out there is, of course, that carbohydrates in the form of bread and pasta and rice convert to glucose in the blood. So it is like you are eating, 15 teaspoons of table sugar when you have that. So just that knowledge in itself, and having something like the CGM, so the continuous blood, the glucose monitor is amazing. I did an experiment with it last year too, and having that there 24/7 to see,
isn't it? Yeah.
Really recommend it to anyone. I mean, you depending on where you sit, you might be able to get it free, but it is about $90 to buy. And to me, it was the best $90 I spent. And I was already, well on my way to, I was already past all that sort of stuff, but I would have loved that at 40 when I was close to, I was pre-diabetic and overweight and tired all the time. And, I would have loved to know then that the oats and banana and honey and all that I was having every morning for breakfast was setting me up for this insulin, massive roller coaster all day. Wow, would have loved to have seen it. But
it's incredible, isn't it? You see, all these people that post, I love Instagram, the healthy shakes and the health of this and the healthy that, and they're full of dates and honey and lupin flour and buckwheat flour, which is, that's fine. But it's, I think it's a lot of, and I don't think people aren't doing it intentionally, but really it's same. Some of these things you may as well, eat a Mars bar quite seriously in terms of sugar content. It might be, it's healthy sugar. There's no such thing as a healthy sugar. It's still sugar. So to people that are that suffer from diabetes, and there's, what is it now? Like 1 in 3 adults, or like the statistics are horrendous in this country. We have to understand that it's an intolerance to all that stuff, but we're constantly being bombarded with, whole grain and essential carbohydrates, and you've got nutritionists posting about the fact that, we shouldn't demonize carbs and they're essential. And it's like, you know, we've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But you know, it's quite interesting. It's hard, and you understand why it's so hard for people to decipher and make those choices. You really do understand why, because it's you know, decipher the health food aisle in your supermarket.
That's right. That's right. There's nothing healthy really in the health food aisle.
It's nothing
But it's
in there.
interesting. It is like anything, when you do scratch the surface, you know, I love sending people down the rabbit hole. You know, you scratch the surface of your stuff and you don't stop. And I think it doesn't actually take much to scratch the surface and see beyond the dogma. You know, I think back to 7.5, nearly 8 years ago when I kind of found Prof Notes. My husband and I found he was our first one, and you know, the information out there now
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's mind-blowing. And there's people like the Feckies who have just done an incredible amount of work to show us behind the dogma and why the dietary guidelines are what they are. And, you know, as soon as you start to understand that, it just, you have to go down that rabbit hole and, but you have to want to scratch that surface first. And that's my job, I think, you know. I love what you said and what your friend said to you about planting the seeds. And that's all we can do. We plant the seeds, and one day, you know, that seed might germinate. We might pick it up and, you know, it'll be that time for us. And I remember for me, do you remember David Gillespie's book? Did you ever read Sweet Poison?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah. So I was actually told about that book about 2 years before I paid any attention to it. So I was actually, you know, when I was a personal trainer and I was a client, said, oh, have you heard about sugar? And I read this book and I was like, oh, yeah, go and have your banana before we train, please. And then go and have your low-fat yogurt. And zero awareness, did not take any of it in. And then something, I don't know, something happened. I can't even remember what happened now, but I came across it and I remember I was reading it, I'm going, and I was still actually friends with this client. I said to her, you know, I've read this amazing book. You've got to read it. It's all about how sugar is key, you know,
she's making
you sick.
I told you.
And she's like, I told you about that book 2 years ago. I'm like, no, you did it? Because,
yeah, it's true. It's like I remember watching the sugar film, you know, the Australian film, the sugar film. Blew my mind. And then I watched it, and then I got my kids in and sat them down and said, you've got to watch this, guys, and blah, blah. And we watched it. See? And then what? You know? Then it just was, well, yeah, it's bad, but didn't really, I mean, look, we'd never sort of, you know, we're home cooks too, but still never really acted upon it. And that's why, what he says is that, you know, you sort of pop a couple of things down, and when each person is ready, whether they be ready because they've had an epiphany and they've you know, they've listened to Prof Noak speak, or you know, to Gary Fettke speak, and thought, oh, you know, maybe I'll just Google a couple of things and start to dig themselves for information because they're curious, or they want to make changes for their family. Like their kids might be, you know, you might have a child that's been diagnosed with ADHD or getting seizures and all these other conditions that LCHF are now being linked to, or, you know, you yourself get a medical diagnosis. You know, I mean, when I went to my GP and he told me I had fatty liver, I asked him about intermittent fasting because I'd started to listen to all this stuff. And he opened a drawer on the side and he took out a photocopied piece of paper, and he spoke for about 16 minutes in this normal consult about, you know, the tribal people. Like, this was his thing. But if I hadn't said anything, he wouldn't have. I said to George, it's like this, oh, she's okay with it. And like, he's brought out this piece of paper that explained, you know, this one man that had fasted for 100 days. It was a sort of an experiment and like intermittent fasted. And I thought, look at this. It's really is quite underground. It's really still quite, you know, people sort of, I think, wait still for some people to say it, especially in the medical profession. They're still very wary, given what people like Gary Fettke had gone through. You don't blame them. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what
But
happens.
isn't that interesting? It's almost like from the other perspective, then we're not giving them a chance either when we don't actually ask them about it, because how many are like that sitting there? You know, I've got another friend who, one of my best friends in Melbourne, and her husband is one of the top liver specialists in Melbourne. And she just told me the other day, he's just written a book on how to reverse fatty liver. And it's all about food, sugar, lifestyle. I'm just like,
get it out there.
Really? Yeah, like he's at the Austin Hospital over in, Heidelberg. He's been the head there for a very long time. And I'm like, fantastic. I mean, they've always
great.
Been, he wouldn't sit himself in, he wouldn't call himself in the low carb lifestyle banner, but it's all that. It's the same thing. It's the same message again. You ignore the label and look at the message. And I just think that it's fantastic. There is more and more stuff out there. And I think,
100%.
It's all giving people a chance giving doctors a chance. Yeah. Again, we love to think we know, don't we? We love to think we know.
Yes. That's half the problem, isn't it? We think we're not. No, we're just dismissive. And by no means it's not about doctor bashing either, because a lot of them just don't know. They haven't been taught anything about nutrition. And it's not that they purposefully withhold information. It's not like that at all. So I hope that more and more start to sort of speak out as people start. I think the internet's given people a confidence of, I know there's a whole thing about, Dr. Google, but you see a lot more people on forums and things investigating things on their own. Like, I've got this, my doctor said that, who else is doing this? And it's given us an opportunity to really reach out and network with people. And, people respond back, I'll go to this website, or there's this study. And, there's so much information now just being passed around, and, you get this sort of groundswell, which is really encouraging. But you also, on the flip side of that, have you do have the cards sort of stacked up against us in terms of mainstream. But it's, doctors, someone had said the other day, he was a doctor, I love it when my patients come to me and they know, they give me questions and I know they've been looking, whereas, the conversation around that previously was like, oh, my God, people are on the internet Googling and they know everything, So it's a matter of, well, I don't feel well, I want to get better, I want to, have that incentive on myself to try. So questions are being asked.
It is. It's very exciting. Well, it's been lovely to hear your story and your mother-in-law's story as well. And I'd love you to sort of just I love people to sort of give a little bit of words of wisdom, or to people sitting there on the cusp, maybe a little bit afraid to take that first step. What would you say to them to encourage them just to take that first step?
My advice would be just take it one meal at a time. Just change one thing at a time. Don't feel like you have to, subscribe to an 8-week regimented thing. If you're a data-driven person and you're tech-savvy, download an app and, log your food so you can see, you can keep track of yourself. If you're not like that, don't. Just try and make some changes, start with the basics and don't put too much pressure on yourself. One meal at a time. I say, change what's on your plate and you'll turn your life around, and it'll happen. It happens, and it happens pretty quickly too if you sort of stick to it, and don't let other people discourage you.
Great.
Just do you. Yeah.
Great advice.
I would give. Yeah.
Love it. So where can people find you?
Website is under construction, but it's changingplates.com.au.
Love the name.
And there'll be something. Yeah, well, I thought, because I've got a young family too, well, not so young, teenager and tween, hoping to put some resource up there for, I find a lot of mums want to make some changes, because it's all about the habits we get into, isn't it, as kids? We're passing on what we learnt to our children, So, we're just trying to, we've changed our plates in our family. We're eating differently. We're, a lot more, because you feel better, you're a lot more active. I love it when my teenager comes home and she's so frustrated with things that are flying around the classroom, comments that are being made in her sort of home ec classes and stuff. She just gets so upset. And don't get upset, People have to understand things. It's not your job to educate people. So it's fun watching that. I love that. It's really good. So, yeah. Take your time.
I love it.
One day at a time. Yeah.
Beautiful. And of course, Helena and I are part of the admin team on the Low Carb Melbourne. So if you are in and around Melbourne, or even if you're not, it doesn't really matter where you are.
Just join in.
Yeah, it's just designed as a support group. We've got a GP, Dr. Avi, and we have a nutritionist, and we also have an exercise physiologist on the admin team. And the reason the 5 of us are doing this is because we all have, different knowledge and experience to bring, and we believe it from our heart that this is the healthiest way to give us the best chance to, it's not about how long you live, it's about the quality of life. And I know I don't care, I don't want to live from 60 to 80 in a decrepit state. I want to live and drop dead very quickly at whenever I'm going to drop dead. It's quality, and if you're looking for more support, if you're new, you're not new, but you want to find out more, search up Low Carb Melbourne on Facebook and say hi to Helena and I, and we'd love to have you as part of it.
Yeah, and then that's an important thing too, is to surround yourself with like-minded people. It makes things a lot easier. You've questions, anything, we're there for that reason. So pop in and say hello.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, darling. It was lovely to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
You're welcome.